No. Ready? Okay. All right, folks, let's get started. Thanks, everyone, for being here tonight. Chairman Goff was not able to make it, so I'm filling in for him tonight. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. To the pledge tonight, I'd like to have a moment of silence in recognition of Colin McFadden, who passed away last week, an awful fire downtown, and also for the families that were displaced by the fire. So thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, I don't have any change in the order of business tonight, so we'll go right to Brian's superintendent's report.
Thank you, Carl. Good evening, everyone. The first part of the superintendent's report I'd like to review with the board as far as COVID-19 funds. I know back in June, I talked about this process in the application. And I'm very proud and very pleased to inform you that the Hartford Public Schools have been approved for the $119,394. So we're very excited about that. The monies will be spent on and directed directly with students. We plan to hire an additional tutor this year for the 2021-22 school year. In addition, 2 tutor positions next school year and 1 tutor position 2023-2024. In addition, some of the monies are utilized for this summer school this past year. As we mentioned in June, that we did increase our enrollment in summer school, almost 40 students. It was very successful, went very well. And these tutors will work directly with kids. I know there was a lot of questions as far as in June, as far as the summer school and other opportunities for other kids, different learners. So I'm very proud to say that our tutors will be working with students from various learning backgrounds. So I'm very excited about that over the next 3 years. Does anyone have any questions about the COVID-19 funds?
Thank you for getting those.
You're welcome. And I'm also very pleased to inform the board, and we'll present in greater detail in the September Board of Education meeting, through another grant resource, we're able to provide tutoring before school to students. And we'll identify those students, and we're very excited. We understand there was learning loss over the last year and a half due to COVID-19, and that would be an opportunity for students to help with their learning loss before school. And once again, I'm very excited about that. Our staff's excited, and we'll come to the board with that plan in September. Tom?
So none of this money is tied to this reopening plan we're reviewing tonight, correct?
Right, it's already been approved. That's correct.
So the grant money you just mentioned that you're applying for to give tutoring before school, you don't mean in August, you mean like,
When school starts, probably end of September, early October, before school.
so like 7 o'clock, 7:30 in the morning?
Probably be 30 minutes. Once again, we'll get into details. It'll
Okay.
probably be 30 minutes before school.
Okay, when you first mentioned, I thought you meant like in August.
No.
Oh, well, that's good too. Thanks.
Thank
You don't know how much money, do you?
It'll probably be about $10,000 or $11,000.
Oh, good.
Yes, Tim?
Correct. Just for my clarification, as reading this here, so the 120 is going to fund 3 tutors for the 21-22 school year?
It's going to fund for the $119,394.
Mhm.
That's going to fund 1 tutor position this school year.
Okay.
2 tutor positions next school year, and 1 tutor position the third year. However, we did, through ESSER 2, other COVID money, we were allowed to bring back 2 tutor positions that were eliminated through the budget process. I know we talked a lot about that as far as eliminating the tutor positions when we brought back the teacher, the 4th grade teacher there. So I'm proud to say we brought those 2 tutor positions that were eliminated and added another one for this school year.
Okay.
So to help students.
So this coming school year, I agree with that. That's all. That's great news. I guess my question revolves around the following school year. If we're saying we have funding, right?
Yeah.
Because we're gonna have to represent our budget.
Right.
Things happen when we present our budget.
Yeah.
So this coming school year,
Yeah.
is there any opportunity that these funds be directed to do something this coming school year?
Yes. For
I'm
that,
just trying to understand the strategy behind it.
absolutely, because it's, it gets confusing because it's different pots, different
It's different
funding
pots, different
resources.
school years, different budgets.
Absolutely, yeah, great question, Tim. So this ARP, this latest round of funding, the $119,394, a portion of that will fund 1 tutor position this school year. This year meaning that starts August 30th.
Got it. Yep.
And that $119,394 will fund 2 tutor positions following year and 1 tutor position in 3 years.
That's not additional tutors, though. That's just the,
It's 1 additional tutor this year, and then we brought back the 2 tutors that were eliminated through the budget process. Any other questions about the COVID-19 funds?
If the 2 tutors that we eliminated through the budget process, if their money isn't connected to the 119,000, how were we able to bring them back?
Sure. As I mentioned, that's coming for ESSER 2, a different funding
Okay,
pot.
sorry,
Yes. Yep.
thanks.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
is there any money left over after all that?
I wish.
Is there ever?
So I'll go on to capital projects. I do want to thank the facility subcommittee, Tim Kleps, Tony Persicino, for the leadership and help in preparing for the year, and the entire board for approving the capital plan. So I just want to update the board in preparation for the school year on our capital plan. I'm pleased to inform the board that we do have our 80 Chromebooks. Every student in the district will have a Chromebook for the school year. We're very excited. We started that a few years ago, and we did expand that to the entire district, so we're very proud of that. Unfortunately, because of COVID-19 and the supply line being impacted negatively, and a couple parts of this capital plan, but specifically the 4 Promethean boards, those smart boards, will not be coming in until September. But we'll definitely have them. We'll have them for the school year, but just not for the beginning of the school year. The room 17, as far as the tiles, I'm very pleased to say that's been completed, that project. Very excited about that. The students and staff are excited about that updated room. Security upgrades, we do have 9 new classroom doors here at Antolini. Tim Kleps, thank you once again for your help and leadership in providing and helping installing those doors. So we've been doing that, as you know. We did that last year, this year, and we'll continue in our 5-year plan moving forward as far as additional doors, which enhances security. The sidewalk at Bakerville School looks tremendous. That has been completed, looks fantastic. The foyer coming into Bakerville, when you're coming in through the main office, that has not been completed, but it's on schedule to be completed before school starts. The playground update on the playground. So the playground has been installed at Bakerville School. Looks tremendous. You see a lot of students, a lot of young kids in town on the playgrounds. It's tremendous. It's really helped the learning environment at Bakerville. Our kids are very excited to use that over the course of the year. Because of delays, because of COVID-19, New Hartford Elementary, that has not been installed, the playground. The plan is, I know Jessica Chakowski and the playground committee are working diligently to try to get that done. We're trying to get it done before school starts, but we cannot promise it's 100% it's going to happen. But the fact is, the New Hartford Elementary School playground will be installed very soon. So we're very excited about that. And I also like to thank all of the parents who came out and helped the installation of the Bakerville playground. We could not have done it without every one of them, and we're very happy and pleased, and we're very thankful and grateful for the community spirit in installing that playground. Painting has been completed at New Hartford Elementary School, and we're just putting the finishing touches at Bakerville School. So that's been a big help as far as the learning environment and painting. And the final piece is the boiler. So I talked about COVID-19 impacts in the supply chain. Unfortunately, the boiler will not be installed until spring 2022. So that means we'll still be going off one boiler this year, which has been working over the last several years. And we're working with our heating and air conditioning subcontractor to ensure that the boiler that's in right now is working properly for the year. But that's very unfortunate news. There's nothing we could do about that, but I did want to inform the board about that as far as when the new boiler will be coming in and be installed. Does anyone have any questions on the capital plan?
What was the delay, Brian, for the boiler?
Yeah, it's a Burnham boiler, and they do not have that in stock right now.
What do the repercussions look like in the event that the current boiler that's there,
I'm sorry?
the current boiler that's there, what are the repercussions if that breaks down? What you guys look,
Well-
does it look like it's good to go, or is there a concern?
Yeah, I think we should be fine, but you can never predict everything that's going to happen. As they say in the business, we don't have redundancy there, right? Another boiler. We only have one boiler at Bakerville right now. So we're in that same situation. So we'll have to fix it as soon as possible. And if we have to move kids to another learning environment, we'll have to do that. But we're doing everything we can to prepare for the winter season. Any other questions on the capital plan? Great. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you, Carl.
All right, moving on to the consent agenda. Did everyone read through the minutes and expenditure report? Any reasons to pull that for any reason? All right, can I have a motion for,
I'll make the motion that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
thanks, Penny.
Second.
Thanks, Tom. All in favor? Unanimous. Okay. Brian, on to personnel.
Yes, thank you, Carl. I'd like to update the board. As we know, every summer, there's always changes. And that was the case this summer. We did have some retirements and staff members who did move on to other districts for a variety of reasons. But I would like to welcome formally several staff members, new staff members to the Hartford Public Schools. We're very excited. It's a very comprehensive vetting process. Nathan Tancredi will be a fourth grade teacher at Antolini School. I'd like to welcome him. Sarah Morrow will be a .6 music teacher. We're very excited to have Sarah in the district. Drenka Marcoux will be the new special education teacher at New Hartford Elementary and Bakerville School. Jennifer Sinkovic will be a new tutor at Antolini School. Teresa Stark will be a new tutor at New Hartford Elementary School. Nikki Tomaselli will be a new tutor at Bakerville School. And I did receive notice this Friday that Stephanie LaPointe, a fourth grade teacher, will be moving to another district, Granby, in her hometown. So that'll be a loss. We wish her the best. She is scheduled to be here for the next several weeks and for the start of the school year. And we're in the process. We just posted that today. So I want to let the board know about those new staff members here. I'd like to inform the board we'll have a new teacher orientation this Thursday, as we do every single year from 9 to 12 here at Antolini School, just to talk about the procedures and protocols here in the New Hartford Public Schools, and of course expectations as well. That'll be this Thursday. Any questions on personnel? Great. Thank you very much, Carl.
Thanks, Brian. All right, we'll move on to public comment. And I need to move a microphone up there once people come up, but just reading this out loud from the bylaws of the board, just so everyone is aware. Per the bylaws, for public comment, 5 minutes may be allotted for each speaker, and a maximum of 20 minutes to each subject matter. No boisterous conduct shall be permitted at any Board of Education meeting. Persistence in boisterous conduct shall be grounds for summary termination by the chairperson of that person's privilege to address. If necessary, the chairperson may clear the room so that the board can continue the meeting. No oral presentation shall include charges or complaints against any employee of the Board of Education, regardless of whether or not the employee is identified in the presentation by name or by another reference which tends to identify an individual. All charges and complaints against employees shall be submitted to the Board of Education under provisions of Board of Education policy. So I know, welcome anyone that wants to speak. Oh, you got it? Thank you. And when you come up, please state your name and address. Please.
My name is Damon Bean, 251 Cedar Lane. I'd like to start by reading a letter I sent this morning to the Board of Ed and Mr. Murphy. I'd like to read this into the record. At the last Board of Ed meeting on June 1st, I requested that Superintendent Murphy supply the Board of Ed and the public with an official account and/or clarification of the legal and financial consequences that New Hartford District may incur if they decide to vote against following official Connecticut State COVID mask mandates for our schools. The meeting notes clearly show that this request was supported by many Board of Ed members and accepted by Superintendent Murphy. Superintendent Murphy stated he would ask our town attorneys for their opinion on this subject and provide it to the board so they could proceed with a fully informed course of action in regards to COVID mandates for our schools. I have not, as of this date, seen any official correspondence from Superintendent Murphy on this issue. As the first public Board of Ed meeting since June 1st request is happening this evening, August 17th, I assume that the clarification that was requested will be provided to the public at this scheduled Board of Ed meeting, and I look forward to its presentation. I'd like to also end with two things. One, we know that Lamont recently said that masks are required. So it puts us in the position, if we are even going to question it, what are the consequences? And we are not stuck with this. We do have options, but we need to know what are the consequences of these options. And I think that has to be publicly acknowledged, and we have to work with those out in the open and transparently. Two, I'd like to say that non-compliance with government overreach is an American tradition. It keeps our politicians honest. It keeps our democracy vibrant. This happens in democracies. They overreach. This is an overreach. And it's not only an overreach, it's an overreach that really makes no sense. I'll use their own words in the new reopening plan. In the section under contract tracing and quarantine, it says that we have signed on to, in the middle of the paragraph, vaccinated students and staff no longer need to quarantine if they are asymptomatic. I'm going to read that again. Vaccinated students and staff no longer need to quarantine if asymptomatic. The vaccines don't stop transmission, that's accepted. It reduces symptoms. It makes people that get it asymptomatic. This is saying that if they test positive for COVID and they're asymptomatic because they got the vaccine, they're going to school. How does that help anything? Their own words make no sense. How does that help anybody? I'll leave it with that. Thank you.
Bill Marcano, 96 Arrowhead Drive. I just found out up at football practice that I guess Lamont put in today that our kids will be wearing masks for the first 30 days. My question is, what's going to happen when my child shows up to school, removes their mask? Will they be sent home with their schoolwork? I don't really know how to put it into words, but you guys are the ones sending him home. He's going to school, It's no different than if he gets sent home sick, he would be given his schoolwork. So for both of my children actually here at NRET Regional, I don't know if I can get an answer or what the answer will be or when it will be, but that is a concern that my wife and I have because our kids will not be attending school wearing a mask all day long. So, thank you.
Hello. Liz Patterson, 382 Charles Street. Good evening, everybody. I'm here today to voice my strong opposition to masking our children in schools. Over the last 6 weeks, I have been featured in the newspaper, in a podcast, and national television, talking about unmasking our kids. This movement is growing. Parents are standing up and fighting for their kids, and they're not backing down. Enough is enough. We will no longer subject our kids to this political power struggle. When states right next to each other are either banning masks or mandating masks, it's no longer about the science. In my opinion, it's about control. Now, for the sake of our children, I ask that you open your eyes and stop being a participant in this foolish charade. If you continue to play along with these oppressive restrictions, you may all be on the wrong side of history. My child has rights, the right to an education, and the right to breathe without restriction. We will no longer comply. Masking healthy children will not keep them healthy much longer. They have already sacrificed so much for this illusion of safety. Masks are bacteria-infested isolation shields that cause headaches, learning difficulties, and joylessness in our children. But you might argue, hey, it's just for the greater good. That's wrong, because masks do not reduce the transmission of COVID. And if anyone doesn't believe me, stop being complacent and read the FDA emergency use authorization on face masks for yourself. Did you even know that masks are under EUA? My favorite part is where it says, you can find this right on the CDC website, quote, no printed matter, including advertising or promotional materials related to the use of authorized face masks may represent or even suggest that such a product is safe or effective for the prevention or treatment of patients during COVID-19 pandemic. It's always been there. So why are we still playing along? Listen, the last 18 months, or 18 months ago, we were all terrified of COVID. But now we've got 18 months of data to support that children are not at severe risk. They have a 99.99% survival rate from COVID. Now, let's just stop and think about how remarkable that is. And do you realize children are 10 times more likely to die in a car accident on the way to school than to die from COVID? Why aren't we banning children from riding in cars? Because perspective is more important than fear. And now I realize arguing science and data has its limitations with an administration, so I will just conclude with the legal side. Please hear this notice loud and clear. Failing to allow children their right to refuse to wear a mask is against federal law. And I will repeat that. Failing to allow children the right to refuse is against federal law. We are aware of the recommendations. We have weighed the benefits and the risks with this EUA medical device, and we simply do not consent. Thank you.
Hello, Carrie Guilfoyle, 251 Cedar Lane. Two things with regards to follow-up from the recent committee meeting, that the reopening committee. If somebody can address in the reopening comments, there was a survey from Jen Harris about teachers supporting, 85% of teachers support masks. I'd like clarification if that was a Connecticut survey or a local survey, if that can be addressed in any way. There was already mentioned to the legal advice, and I'll just leave it with this. Please take the healthcare of our children out of the political and societal arena in which it currently sits. Health should be held simply as that. There's overwhelming support that masks do not protect against COVID airborne particles and in fact cause harm to our children. Please vote mask optional. Put our children's health back where it belongs, and that's in the hands of our town's parents. Thank you.
Hi, my name's David Zucker. I live at 10 Kellogg Road. My comments were more around that there's a tremendous amount of fear going into this year. There's fear of people being mandated to wear masks. There's fear of the Delta variant. I'll make this pretty brief. I was hoping that some type of distance learning, there's not a lot of options for families. Like if you're afraid to send, your kid to school, because they might be afraid that everyone's wearing masks, it's going to be psychologically terrible. They might be very afraid of the Delta variant. So as opposed to having families have to homeschool their kids, it seems like they took the remote learning option out maybe too early. And I understand that it's hard for teachers to do. I'm a teacher. It was really, really hard. I'm a music teacher, so I get it. But maybe there's some way to put a camera in the room and somehow stay connected if you really don't feel comfortable coming to school, at least with the variant going crazy. Is there another option besides homeschooling that would allow you to stay connected with the Bakersfield school? We love Bakersfield and the community. And, that's pretty much it. That's what I have. So, thank you.
Hi, I'm Anissa Zucker. I'm David's wife and also a teacher or a tutor. I work at Oak Hill with the special needs group right now. And mother of a 6-year-old daughter. She goes to Bakerville. We fought for Bakerville for it to stay open. We love Bakerville. We love Mrs. Mangini. She was amazing. Love all the teachers and staff. It was a good experience for her, regardless of the circumstances. My concern primarily, I also echo my husband because I think something needs to be done about the fear on both sides, whether you are afraid of the Delta variant catching it or you don't want the mask. I just feel like there's so much polarization that we need to tackle this maturely and be able to discuss this as teachers, parents, administration, everyone. Bring it to the forefront. That's what it said. The best thing to do is just to bring it to the light, right? So previously from September 2020 to June 2021, I was working as an aide in Avon at Reggio Magnet School. Because I was working as an aide, I was able to see more than I was as a teacher. When I was working as a teacher, I couldn't see as much. When I was working as an aide, and I know other aides as well, you can see a lot. You can see things that the teacher doesn't see. Perhaps you're in the back and the kids maybe need some water. What I noticed was I became the water girl. I became the one that would give the children water every day and quite frequently. I just noticed, and I'm not a scientist, I'm not a doctor, but I noticed that they really needed a lot of water. And you might argue this was for attention, but I know other parents and teachers that said the same thing. With the masks on their faces every day, not only was it emotionally difficult for all of us, including the teachers, to see that, we were noticing people were starting to stigmatize. So if the kid was not as well behaved, they were told to put up their mask. There were many kids in that classroom who were well behaved and they did not have to put up their masks. Now, this is just something psychologically we all do, whether we admit it or not. We do. It makes our life easier as a teacher. And I admit it, I've done it. I've done it in the past. You treat one kid differently than the other. And I'm not saying it's fair. I'm not saying it's right. It's just human nature. So one of the things we have to recognize is this can't be a new scapegoat. We can't start masking some people, not others. It's also been said that this is the pandemic of the unvaccinated. There's a lot of evidence too, and even Dr. Fauci said the Delta variant is both more transmittable and more dangerous than the original virus and previous variants, but real world data shows that it's actually weaker and far less dangerous, even though it does spread more easily. So when I hear that, I'm very confused. And this is the thing. I need clarity on some of these issues. When my daughter first came home, I tried for the whole year, and I'm done. Like, I want to homeschool my child at this point, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. I'm very emotional about this, as you could probably tell in my voice. But when I really lost is when my daughter came home, and we put a spacer in between. They told us, if your daughter's having trouble, put a spacer in between. She was in kindergarten. She came home with the spacer, took her mask off, and the spacer was made of plastic, and it was all chewed up. And when she was taking her mask off, she started barking. And my daughter's very smart and very well educated. She's a beautiful child, of course, they all are. But when she started coming home like barking every time that I took the mask off or like reaching out, just acting I knew something was wrong. Something was seriously wrong about these masks. There's a psychological effect that we need to take into consideration. And I know I don't have a lot of time, but I just want to end with this, that if we could just convince the people, anyone who is struggling with fear, if we bring it to the table somehow and we have another discussion about this, I think this is not over. I'm part of an Unmask Our Kids movement. I kind of got thrown into it in New Hartford, quite honestly, but I am part of that movement, and I just think there's something that can be done with this. I hate divide. I hate polarization. I love people. I'm a people person. The separation has been very difficult for our family. We were polarized on this issue as husband and wife. It almost wrecked our marriage. We are good now, but it took a while, and I'm sure other people as well. So whether you're vaccinated, whether you're not, I believe that as well is a personal choice. And to have our religious exemption taken away, that's a lot on us. If I am Christian, and I'm proud to be Christian, and that is something that was difficult for me to accept, that this is getting taken away. I have to get the vaccine now, to be a teacher. That might be in the forefront. Well, maybe I'll homeschool. So I just wanted to end with that. Please look at the facts, look outside of mainstream media, and just, if you could do the research and see what is shown to you, I really would appreciate that. The clarity as well, and to be transparent moving forward. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Kristen Kasiba, 40 Windsor Lane in New Hartford. Mr. Murphy probably knows me very well. I've been emailing him this entire summer. I'm extremely passionate about unmasking the kids. I know I stated numerous times that I didn't want to send my kid to school with the mask on. Ultimately, as much as I don't want to, there's no way I could keep Mason away from his school because he loves it. I do agree with what you stated, because my son was in camp this summer and none of them were masked. And as you sit here, it's funny that we're talking about this, but none of you except for one person has a mask on. But yet our kids are going to be mandated to wear them for 30 days at school. And when I told him you don't have to wear a mask at camp, he literally almost had a panic attack in the car that he thought he was going to get in trouble for not having a mask on. This is what it's doing to our kids. My kid's 7. Now I have a kindergartner going in who's going to be 5. She can't wait to go to the school. I've talked about it. She's excited about Miss Tancredi, excited about the school. And it kills me because she's not going to get that education that she needs. And everyone could say kids are resilient. I'm so tired of hearing that, because they shouldn't have to be resilient. They are 5, 7. They're little kids. I want them to be little kids. We built this playground for them to run and play. And what, in recess, they're not going to have masks on, or when they're eating lunch in the cafeteria, they're not going to have masks on. But as soon as they get back in to sit at their desk, they have to put it up again. They're not next to their peers at their desk. If you want them to wear a mask, I'm at the point, fine, throw my son in a mask when he enters the building. But at his desk, it makes no sense to me. Logically, no sense. This is a virus that's never going away. There's going to be multiple strains, just like the flu. Flu has multiple strains, A, B, we hear it all the time. I get vaccinated for the flu. What happens? Oh, well, I got it again because it must be a different strain. That's what's happening with this. And I wish everyone could see this. Just make it an option. I understand it's a mandate. A mandate is not a law. They're recommending it. It's a recommendation. Make it optional. If you want to wear one, fine, by all means, go right ahead. But it should not be forced on young children. We're all sitting here. No one here has a mask on. One person, and that's fine. But don't force it on these kids. It is absolutely heartbreaking. I cried my eyes out seeing these kids and if on the bus, that's fine. I don't care. But to force them to sit there next to their friends, and my daughter's going into kindergarten. She's not even going to see who these little kids are. How is she going to make friends when she can't even see their face? You know how heartbreaking that is? So she comes home, she's like, oh, I'm not really sure who that was. She gets to meet them outside when they get a mask break. Can you guys see like what this is doing to them? And I don't even speak to my kids about this because it just kills me. As much as people think that I probably have discussions because I'm so vocal about it, I would never, I wouldn't bring my kids here because I just wouldn't do that to them. They have enough stress going on with what's going on right now. I would not do it to them. So I'm begging. Just, you don't have, it's a mandate. It's not a law. Just make it optional. These kids have suffered so much. I mean, we required them using Chromebooks at the age of 5. My son was doing a PowerPoint presentation. Like it blows my mind the stuff that these little kids are going through. I am sick to my stomach. I can't even imagine what they're going through. So just please, I still don't understand why we're having comment before even knowing the plan. I don't know what the plan is, but I'm just begging, like, just please make it optional for the sake of our kids, as everyone's sitting up here without a mask on. Thank you.
I'm going to bring my computer up so I can speak. My name is Superintendent, and I live at 1258 Litchfield Turnpike. Good evening, Superintendent Murphy and the Board of Education members. I wanted to first say tonight that I'm speaking as a concerned parent, but I'm also speaking as someone who's been nominated to serve on the Board of Education by the Republican Committee in New Hartford, and I'm certainly very honored to be have nominated and to be able to use my skills to be able to help serve and represent the families and the children in New Hartford, because that's what we're supposed to do, is serve. Regarding the masks, as you may have all remembered from the last meeting, I was very vocal about my opinions on the vaccinations and the masks. I still am today. Certainly, I want to apologize for my passionate plea in June and for my comments at that time that was also sent through email. I have a son, Quinn, who is going to be entering into the 7th grade, and I'm actually more frightened today than I was in June speaking with you. It's time to make a choice. It really is. It's time to make a choice. As they've all mentioned, it's a mandate by a governor. It's not the law. And we're no longer in a state of emergency, okay? And we're probably one of only 10 states, I believe, that are currently following any kind of mask mandates. Again, mandates, not laws, none of which make any sense. Some states have it, some don't. The neighboring towns do, some don't. So none of it makes any sense. I think it would be a lot easier to follow if some of it made sense. Masks put our children at risk for illnesses, including, and there's many, many things that that includes bacterial infection, headaches, and much, much more, as the rest of these parents have cited. At the last meeting, I sent all the Board of Education and the superintendent a 365-page document that's not made up, that's from real scientists, real doctors, real people, with evidence that masks do absolutely nothing but harm our children. So I have a Google document. I shared the document with every single person on this committee, and not one person opened the document. Not one person. Okay? 365-page document with scientific evidence that masks do absolutely nothing but harm our children. So what are some of the potential risks of masks? So I just took two examples from the 365-page document that I sent. JAMA Pediatrics conducted randomized critical trials and concluded there were ample evidence of adverse effects of wearing such masks, including carbon dioxide poisoning, suggesting that children should not wear face masks. And I have a citation on that. I can send it to you via email. The American Institute for Economic Research stated that masking children was tragic, unscientific, and damaging. Again, I have citations for you. It's clear that we cannot trust any numbers from the CDC or the WHO because they've flip-flopped so many times. And if we're trusting Fauci to give us the evidence that we need to protect our children, we're all in big trouble. Okay, again, the same guy who's sent money over to produce this. So they've changed their story so many times. Governor Lamont is really not somebody I'd trust. The guy has a conflict of interest. He's making millions off of PCR tests and the vaccines. So again, a major conflict of interest. He's really not somebody I want making decisions for my child. Lamont has in effect used his political powers to threaten state reps to extend his emergency powers. Okay, his push is to keep masks on the unvaccinated, which encourages discrimination, segregation, and bullying. Okay, I experienced it today with a client who openly said that I should be vaccinated. My history, medical history, is no one's business. Okay, but you can imagine with little children already being discriminated against because they're not vaccinated, they don't have the vax. Again, discrimination, segregation, and bullying is now happening for people who are unvaxxed. Today, I'm asking you to be courageous, to go against the grain like so many other parents, teachers, students have done in other states around the country and are currently doing so. Do go against the grain, to take a stand and say no. It ends when we, the parents who elect the officials, the politicians, it ends when we say no. And I ask that you come together and refuse to take part in this gross overreach of power by our governor. I'm asking for mask choice when our kids go back to school in a month. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Good evening. Christopher Gagney, 9 Timberline Road. It's not often that you can use your paintbrush in history to make a difference. I personally took my kids out and made sure they stayed at home last year, and I taught them not to be afraid of a virus, not to be afraid of anything, not a person, not God, anything. Well, God, to be afraid of God, that's it. And I just want to make it clear, if you guys don't stand for something, you'll fall for everything. That's a famous quote I think we all know. If you guys are pushing for masks, my kids won't be there. We moved to this particular place because your school is so great. We love it. But if you're making decisions like this, it's not for me and my family and a lot of our friends too. It's a shame. I hope it's not.
Is this an open discussion?
Public comment. Anyone else before we close public comment?
I could simply make a statement.
Okay, Jesse. Please state your name and address, please.
My name is Jesse Campbell. I am a citizen of New Hartford, a rightful taxpayer. And my statement is pretty simple. Despite all of the problems we're having with COVID, I feel that our children are not getting an adequate education because of all the problems they're experiencing with distractions simply from masks and all the protocols, mandates, restrictions. All of that is simply camouflaging the main thing that they're at school for, education, to focus on one thing, and that is a goal for the future. Simple as that. And I feel that masking is definitely interfering with that. That's all I have to say.
Jesse, can you just state your address for the record?
I'm at 38 Maple Hollow Road. Thank you.
Anyone else? thank you, everyone. We all appreciate you coming down and commenting. You know, we couldn't do our jobs without your input and help as a community. So, and I forgot to say, we did receive 2 communications from the board to the board. Brian, I don't know if you had any others besides the 2. From Anissa Zucker and Carrie Guilfoyle and Damon Bean, which will be added to the as communication with the minutes for the meeting. All right. So on to new business. Brian, we're going to review the opening plan.
Sure. Thank you, Carl. Just like to share with the board and the public as far as the process of where we are right now with the reopening plan. And I think I could share with many people in this room and also with the reopening committee as well, that we wish that we were not in this situation again this year. We didn't think we would be here again. It's extremely unfortunate, and we understand it's very difficult for our kids. In saying that, as the board knows, we've developed a reopening committee since last summer. We met last summer to prepare for the start of the school year, this past year, and the Connecticut State Department of Education has asked stakeholders to review the upcoming reopening plan for the coming school year. So we did follow through on that. We did meet this past Thursday. We were hoping that Governor Lamont would come out with more direction, specifically with the masks. And he did indeed today state that masks are required, that it is the law to wear masks K to 12 in schools in Connecticut. He made that this afternoon. And I'm very wary as far as some of the comments that he makes. The next question is, well, how long do children in Connecticut public schools and schools, for that matter, non-public as well, have to wear masks? So he did say today that it could be a month, it could be 2 months, but once again, we don't know where that will end up. But I did want to update the board as far as that updated information today. The reopening committee is comprised of stakeholders from across the district. We have administrators, we have parents, we have teachers, we have a nurse. Tom has served on that committee since last summer as well. So we have a cross-section of people on the reopening committee. I will go through as far as the current updates. There are changes since last June. There are changes from last year as far as the reopening plan and mitigation efforts. And I'll go over with them. I do want to inform the board that this plan I will go over tonight was approved by the reopening committee. It was not unanimous, but it was approved. I want to inform the board about that. So I'd like to touch on the first box here regards to masks, which we understand there's been a lot of concern throughout the course of this pandemic about masks. And I just talked about what Governor Lamont stated. So in following the law and requirements of the governor, face masks will be required for all students and staff here in the New Hartford Public Schools for this school year. I'll make it very clear, as you could see in the box, that we'll continue to monitor changes to see if we're given flexibility moving forward, because we understand how difficult it is for kids to wear masks in schools. So that's a situation as far as masks are concerned. Would you like me to go through this whole plan and questions at the end, or you want to ask questions?
Well, I actually have a question right now.
Sure.
And I might be jumping the gun, but
Sure.
are you going to talk about what the findings from the lawyer?
Yes, I was going to get into that, yes, but since you're asking, I could answer that right now. So, yes, as was mentioned tonight, that Chairman Goff did in our June Board of Education meeting, our last Board of Education meeting, did ask me to ask our Attorney Tyler Bischoff, as far as completing an opinion letter on if a school district, if the New Hartford Public Schools do not follow the mask requirement. So that was shared with every single board member this summer. Chairman Goff did share it with you. Carl, I don't know if you want to chime in.
Sure.
The question was asked today, can it be shared with the public? And our attorney stated, please do not share it with the public because that's attorney-client privilege. But Carl, do you want to add anything to that?
I mean, I can read them, I can sort of summarize it very briefly. And he gave a lot of detail, as most lawyers do. But in summary, to excerpt what he said, if the district chooses not to follow state rules, the district could be subject to liability for claims of negligence. And they recommend that the district adhere to any COVID-19 prevention and mitigation rules and guidance.
Well, he's not going to recommend against it. I mean, that's just ridiculous.
Well,
it's as useless as the words on the paper. I want to make a motion that we change the reopening plan to read masks will be optional for 21-22 school year.
Any second?
I'll second for discussion.
Thanks, Tim.
I want to read a letter written by Rosemary Fernandez Stein, medical doctor, and David Stein, medical doctor. Both are pediatricians in Burlington, North Carolina, and I'll read parts of their letter. So they were asked to write a letter to explain the position regarding keeping our students in masks in school during the next academic year. It is important in doing so that I share our credentials with you. I'm a pediatrician that has practiced medicine for 30 years. I've been board certified in my specialty for 26 years. I've worked in various settings, including emergency rooms, urgent care centers, hospitals, and private medical practices. My husband, David Stein, and I own a pediatric clinic, International Family Clinic, which is located in Burlington, North Carolina, for 22 years. It has come to our attention that various boards of education across the state of North Carolina will be voting regarding whether our students will be required to wear masks in the coming school year. I will share with you what we have observed during COVID-19 transmission. Masks in children since the pandemic began. It is important to explain that my husband and I did not close our clinic at any time during the pandemic. First of all, we saw very little transmission of COVID-19 from child to child nor child to adult throughout the pandemic. Children generally have limited symptoms and severity of illness from COVID-19. In the entire time since the pandemic began, only 2 of our 5,000 patients were hospitalized due to acquiring COVID and becoming sickened from it. Both recovered and are doing very well. This is a much lower rate of severe illness and hospitalization than we generally experience with influenza. Many medical studies have asserted the same conclusions. When mask mandates were initiated in the summer of 2020, we observed no changes in transmission of COVID-19. We encountered no increase in severity of illness in the community nor among our children and their families. When mask mandates were lifted in the spring, we did not encounter a spike in the number of cases of COVID-19. It is our conclusion that masking has not been helpful in whatsoever in limiting the transmission of the pandemic. Again, you may avail yourselves to numerous studies performed in various locations that have asserted the same outcomes. Many effects have occurred due to masking and social distancing that have negatively impacted our children. Our patients have become more depressed, anxious, and withdrawn. Their mental health has suffered, resulting in spikes in pediatric hospitalizations, suicide attempts, and deaths due to suicide. This is a well-known and cited outcome to COVID management, including mask wearing and social distancing in children. Our patients have developed an increased frequency of facial rashes and skin infections since wearing masks. They are exposed to higher CO2 levels, resulting in higher heart rates and intolerance to heat and exercise when required to wear masks for hours at a time. There are many accounts of physicians reporting similar outcomes in their patients as well. In short, it is not in the best interest of our students to be mandated to wear masks for extended amounts of time, as they can cause harm to the health and medical well-being of of our children. It is our conclusion that masks should not be imposed, but rather an option, so the parents may decide if they are comfortable having their children wear them. There's a video circulating the internet from Dr. Dan Stock of Mount Vernon, Indiana. I think we all received a copy of it this past week. Speaking to his local Board of Ed, here's a few highlights of that video. Everything being recommended by the CDC and the State Board of Health is contrary to science. They're giving us bad guidance. All coronaviruses and other respiratory viruses are spread through aerosol particles, which are small enough to go through every mask. And if you read the label on the mask, it says this is not useful against preventing the spread of the virus. COVID is a virus like the flu and a common cold. We need to ask ourselves why we are treating this virus differently. To go along with Dr. Stock's comments that masks don't work, a CDC study published in May 21 from Georgia found that there is no statistical difference in COVID cases between schools that required masks and those that didn't. During a recent town hall meeting in Wisconsin, Joe Biden said the following to an unmasked, unvaccinated 8-year-old who was participating in the town hall. Keywords: unmasked, unvaccinated, participating. Well, first of all, kids don't get COVID very often. It's unusual for that to happen. This is Joe Biden. Vaccine trials have not been conducted on or approved for children because of the relatively low risk. So you're the safest group of people in the whole world, Mr. Biden continued, before assuring the second grader that she is unlikely to expose her mother or father to the virus, nor is she likely to get it from her parents. This little girl is not walking around her home with a mask, and according to Mr. Biden, she is unlikely to expose her mother or father to the virus, nor is she likely to get it from her parents. So why are we forcing our students to wear masks in schools? Why is vaccinating our children being threatened as the only way for them to participate in society without a mask? There is no more hiding behind the words, follow the science. The science is out there, and Joe Biden made it plainly clear to where the science leads. So where are these mandates coming from? We all know where they're coming from. They're coming from the government that knows masking is for show and demonstrates that knowledge daily. Earlier this month, Representative Cortez on the Capitol steps with a group of 60 plus people all huddled together, unmasked. As soon as the photo guy came out, up went the mask. As soon as the guy left, down came the mask. Joke number one. In July, Governor Lamont was videoed entering a hospital unmasked. He was overheard on the video as he made his way through the door. He asked his aides, "Do we need masks?" After being told yes, he put it on. The guy who's making us wear these things. In early August, the mayor of Baltimore was seen violating his own mask mandate not 12 hours after he signed the order. This past weekend, former President Obama held a massive party full of the same congressmen and senators who were telling us to mask up. They were all unmasked. The CDC, who we're supposed to trust, published a document, Interim Operational Considerations for Implementing the Shielding Approach to Prevent COVID-19 Infections in Humanitarian Settings. This is about setting up green zones to segregate people based on potential infection. These people do not have our children's best interest at heart. This is a map of where the mask mandates are right now. Okay? 10 states out of the entire country have a mask mandate, us being one of them. Today, Lamont said our kids will be in masks for at least another month. He said, that's what we got to do. We did it last fall. We're going to do it again this fall and show the country we know how to do it safely. So he wants to be some sort of national hero and expose at the expense of our kids' education. And I'll tell you what's driving this. The fact that 85% of the teachers in this district want the mask to remain. If you follow the mask talking points that say, my mask protects you, these teachers, all of whom can be or are vaccinated, are asking our children to protect them. They want my 11-year-old to protect them at the expense of his education. This is reprehensible. It's shameful. I've been one of the strongest advocates on this board for our teachers, and I question that advocacy now. This is only a handful of many examples of mask hypocrisy. My point is that the government making us mask our kids don't care about our kids. We're following their own rules. We're following whatever they seem to think passes for science. You do not have our kids' best interest at heart. They are operating as a do as I say, not as I do mode. We need to be the ones on this board who advocate for these kids. We need to allow our parents to be parents and make the decisions for their children. That is what we were elected to do. In Superintendent Murphy's own words, put on paper to government in July, in his words, current mandates have made learning far more difficult and is resulting in deteriorating student performance. So I'm asking this board, what good are we as a board if we're going to let this deterioration continue? To be clear, I know no money tied to us following this executive order. If we're just going to listen and adhere to whatever comes out of Hartford, why do we need a Board of Education at all? Let's just let Superintendent Murphy do whatever Hartford says. Why vote to approve a policy if we have no other choice but to approve it? Voting to approve something to which we disagree only validates Hartford's control over our lives, our children, and their education. I will not put a rubber stamp on Lamont's overreach. We do not work for Lamont, and I will not approve a policy that puts a mask on our children. If we don't say no now, when do we say no? After the 29th or the 30th, when he extends the goalpost another month? It's now or never. That's where I stand with this.
All right, we have a motion on the floor. Any other discussion?
Yeah, I do. I'm struggling with this. And I'm struggling with this because I could be wearing two hats. If I wasn't sitting on the other side of this table, I'm with most of you out there. I despise masks. For all of the reasons that everybody has come up here and talked about, I probably agree with almost all of it. But it comes, for me, what I'm struggling with right now, when we left here the last meeting and we asked to consult the lawyer, I was, hoping that you were going to come back with, maybe there's a loophole. I was praying that maybe by the time we got to this point, we would be done with masks. It wouldn't even be a discussion. And now everything seems to be, ramping back up and with the Delta variant. And we're kind of going in the opposite direction. I feel like Kelly Odell wearing the parent hat, yeah, I want to stand up and fight. I do. But when you sit over here on this side of the table, we also have an obligation as a board to protect the district. And that's where I'm struggling. Because if down the road, somebody contracts COVID, we go against the state mandates, laws, whatever it is, we're liable. This isn't about, raising the $100,000 that we're going to lose. I could give that up in a heartbeat. I'd say let's go for it. Let's say no masks, unmask our kids. But what if somebody gets sick? What if a teacher gets sick? What if a child gets sick and we get sued for millions of dollars because we weren't following state guidelines? No. Yeah. But I'm asking, I know it's frustrating. So I'm asking the board,
I know, we don't get to respond to
where
either,
do
so it's
you
frustrating
stand
for us
with, where do
too.
we stand with that? Like,
You can get sick going to the grocery store. I hear you, Kelly, 100%. But every kid out there is playing right now with their friends every day.
I
They're up at
know.
Bundy Park, jumping all over each other. They're out in the backyard right now, running all over each other.
I know.
At recess, they're going to be outside playing with each other, unmasked. At lunch, they're going to be eating across from each other, unmasked. Are you going to tell me someone's going to be able to say they got sick because we didn't have a mask in classroom? That's insane.
I know
The rules are just insane. We're pretending that they're not. It's crazy. I can't.
but they're not our rules,
We don't. They are our rules if we put a yes stamp on this plan.
But
I'm not.
Tom, let me ask you this. The children in Florida now that are not masked and they are getting COVID, why? If they had worn masks, would they maybe not be getting sick?
What are you going to try to? You can't prove a negative.
Well, I understand what you're saying,
I'm
And
not
I
gonna-
feel-
I'm
I
not
feel
arguing
for
with
the
the parent either,
parents.
but you can't prove a negative.
and I feel for the children, but if
If
it's
they were
going to keep
masked in
them from
Florida,
getting
if
sick,
they were masked in Florida and they were still getting sick, would you say, oh, they should? What else would you point?
but they're not
Again,
masked
it-
in
it-
Florida. They're unmasked and they are getting sick.
okay.
I
so-
would hate for any of your children to get sick because
I don't
you
want
didn't
any-
want
I
to
don't
wear a
want any
mask.
kid getting sick.
All right, let's.
Is there any other town any other district in Connecticut any other Board of Education that has voted to unmask kids or make it optional.
Why don't we be the ones and let other boards ask us? New Hartford's the guys you need to ask.
So Kelly, to answer your question, I quickly searched and I haven't found one. However, I did see in Georgia that they did a thing where they're not doing masks and it's kind of like enter at your own thing. We are not liable, and they sign waivers or something like that. I did not get a chance to read into it in depth enough to sit here and have, you know, to support it or to not support it or whatever. I just know that, you know, I was doing some research on it and I found that, and I just thought maybe that was something that maybe we could discuss. Is it even an option? Is it something that we bring to the attorney and see what happens if we were to go down that route? Is that okay? Does that legally remove us from the lawsuit part of it? Because to your point, Kelly, the town already has a problem every time we ask in the budget for money for stuff for our kids. To go back and ask for millions of dollars for a lawsuit is going to be pretty tough. And I'm saying that not to cause an argument, Tom, because I'm telling you,
I'm not
but
arguing with you either. Believe me.
well,
I know.
because Tom, look me in the face here. I'm with you on this.
I know you are.
Like, I'm not,
I know you are.
if there's a way for us to rip it off, I'm good with that. I just have to look at every strand that is sewn into this spider web, because there are good points and negative points to each strand of that spider web.
I'm only saying this
Yeah.
because if you look at the rules by which we're being asked to live, there is to say, you know, I don't want any kid getting sick, but if someone gets sick, you're going to say it's because they were in a classroom and studying social science with a mask, without a mask on, whereas 5 minutes earlier they were in the cafeteria having lunch with someone, or the day before they were out at Walmart, or practicing football in the back with the team.
I'm
Or
not
up at
disagreeing with
playing
you. I'm
Gaga
just-
ball up at the Brody Park on a Wednesday night.
I'm
They're
not
all in the
dis-
same pitch.
Yeah, I'm not
doing all
disagreeing
over
with
each
you.
other. It makes no sense.
I was answering Kelly's question
I know.
in regards to,
Sorry, I don't
yeah.
want to monopolize it.
No,
It's
that's
okay.
fine. Well,
No, and I get what Tom is saying.
Yeah, I do
that,
too.
That makes sense, but we all know that when it comes to lawsuits, it's a crapshoot. You never know what's going to happen, you know? And if somebody does get sick and is able to prove it in a court of law, I mean, and I don't know.
Yeah.
This is one of those, like, I don't think I've ever been so, like, wavering on something, because what I want to do as a parent and what I feel is right for kids, and I'm a teacher, and I don't agree with masks. I just don't.
Yeah.
But I'm also trying really hard to think like a board member as well and not put the district at risk.
I know. Is that an option that we could bring to our attorneys and just ask, like, is there an opt-out or a hold harmless or something like that in which?
You would have told them.
Carl has it in front of him. If that was an option, as Kelly's talking about, they would have put that in
Right.
there as an option. So I don't think that's an option.
It's not in the legal guidance.
Our next meeting is.
I'm
Tim, you're quiet. Where do you stand on this? I want to know what you think.
Well, I mean, I am not a proponent of math. Right, I understand what everybody's saying regarding liability and risk and all that, right? I mean, first off, when I look at this reopening plan, I mean, right away, to me, this reopening plan is not approvable, right? Executive order number 12A is expired today, right? Expired on July 20th. Right? I don't have anything new that redirects me, that tells me it's any different. When I read Executive Order 12A, I have it here on my phone, it talks about, again, if people fail to wear masks, you get a $100 fine. And there's a list of people here who can issue that fine. All right. It also talks about the commissioner, the commissioner of public health is supposed to provide a list of facilities. I don't have that, right? I don't have that in front of me to say that this even makes sense, to say that we're going to require face coverings for all indoors, for all vaccinated and unvaccinated individuals, right? This says, again, if we can maintain a safe distance, right? There's school districts out there that I know have plexiglass at each one of the desks. Again, not that I condone that either, because I don't think that is, again, as Tom just said, you sit in the lunchroom, as close as Tom and I are right now, we can spit all over each other. It's okay. All right, but we go in our classroom and we can't do that. It's silly. It really is silly to me. I think that there needs to be further. We need to understand more, right? We can't go on old information that's not updated. Brian, unless you have something different than I see in
Yeah,
front of
the
me.
only thing I see is then we just remove the 12A. The rest of the
Well-
information should be updated, right?
Well, the governor today made a statement. Right?
Yeah, right.
That's all he did was make a statement.
Right.
We've got to determine what what.
But beyond the statement, this information is coming from the Connecticut Department of Education. So,
Right, and again, you read through here, he's giving it to the Commissioner of Public Health, right? Not to the State Department of Education, which is again, another very confusing thing when you're looking at the way that this plan's put together. Right? What I read here is not in line with what we have here.
what you read where?
I'm reading, I'm on portal.connecticut.gov. I'm looking at specifically State of Connecticut by His Excellency's Ned Lamont Executive Order number 12A. When you read down here, he repeals 12 and he goes through this whole thing. He gives Executive Order number 12 is repealed, effective immediately. Any person while indoors in a public space who does not maintain a safe social distance of approximately 6 feet from every other person who is not fully vaccinated, right? Again, this is something that expired, right down the end where he signs. This order shall take effect immediately and remain in effect through July 20, 2021. So we have nothing new.
So I would push back on that, Tim, because I think that this information, that this box does encompass what the governor said today. I mean, the only thing I will remove is 12A. I don't think that this box is meant to cover word for word what the governor stated today. That's just my 2 cents on that.
Which is all well and good, right?
Yeah.
But again, social distancing, we're saying decrease to 3 feet. This says 6 feet. So again, there's no correlation. There's no current information that we're basing our plan on.
But once again, this information in this plan is based on the Connecticut State Department of Education guidelines and requirements. So,
But the State Department of Education can't tell the local district. They can give us guidelines. We don't have to follow their guidelines. It's the State Department of Education, right?
it gets back, there's requirements and guidelines, and I think we just discussed the last few minutes about the requirement, which if you don't follow the requirement, that's up to the board as far as if they want to follow the law, the requirements.
No, I think again, in my opinion, right, law and guidelines are two different things.
Yes.
I don't have a current law that I can look at. Again, this is my opinion, right? I'm one of many here, right? But
That those two words keep getting thrown back and forth, and that I want more clarification. Is it a law? Is it a mandate?
And I read our attorney's opinion, and it didn't provide the information that I was looking for. We wanted to know what is the repercussions of what we did, not.
You could be sued if.
Yeah, right.
Wait.
You could be sued if you step over, if the car becomes loose, you get sued from trip sign.
What does Farmington Valley Health say? Didn't we have to go by their guidance last year?
We do. We don't have to go word for word. However, the Connecticut State Department of Education, the Governor Lamont,
Yep.
the Farmington Valley Health District have all stated that they recommend. And also, once again, the state is requiring, mandating law, whatever term you want to talk about, as far as the masks are required. So I hope I answered your question, Penny, as
No,
far as that's concerned.
I mean, all right, so he mandates, but is he saying, this is the law from now until September 30th, you will wear a mask if you are in school, whether
Yes,
you are
that's
vaccinated or
correct.
unvaccinated?
That is correct.
Okay.
It's the law. The executive powers that are instilled by the state legislature, yes.
I mean, I don't like masks either.
We all don't,
I
absolutely.
hate masks.
Right.
I don't do
So
shopping
here's-
anymore, so I don't wear masks, and I don't go into stores.
So here's my question. If it's a law,
Yeah.
then why do parents in the community come to the Board of Ed looking for us to change this law if we can't do it?
That's a great question. It's a
Yeah.
great question. It's a great question.
I'm like, I just feel like every time we sit here, I
Well,
still
another
walk
question
away
is, why are
not
we
totally
asked- Why are
clear.
we asked to validate if we have no choice? Why are we even sitting here? That's my not my biggest, but that's a gripe. I'm gonna sit here and validate this plan. We're gonna put our stamp on it, and then we're gonna be sitting here in front of our constituents saying, well, you approved that plan. No, I'm not approving the plan. I don't care if it is the law or not. I'm still voting no on this plan tonight. And we should all vote no on it. Because if we're all stuck with it, we're stuck with it.
Well, I'd just like to add that I think there's other parts of this plan that are important.
There are.
And people brought up a lot of good points about, options and, there's a lot of details here. So I know masks are a big part of this, but I don't want to, I don't want to lose sight of the other things we have to talk about either.
I mean, I would hate for us to lose any funding from the state government or the federal government because we want to be the first ones in Connecticut to say, you don't have to wear a mask in school. We depend upon those funds to help our schools and help our children.
But as far as I know,
it's our responsibility
no.
to set the guidelines, but
No, I know, but I, as far as I know, there's no money tied to this. No one says unless you follow this plan or his plan or whatever plan you want, you're not gonna get your,
so when Brian goes for that grant to help the children before school in the morning that need extra tutoring, you don't think that somebody's not going to come back and say, well, you don't like to follow the rules, so therefore, why should we give you any money? You don't play by the
then we
rules.
sue them for discrimination.
But
That's not gonna do
just
any good.
clarification, that grant money for before school tutoring has nothing to do with the reopening plan.
What about the parent that wants their child, say, wearing a mask and decides to sue us because we decided to ignore the rule of the mandate?
Then let
That
them
puts
wear a
us at
mask.
risk also.
Let them wear a mask. I'm not saying not wear a mask. You can wear a mask all the time if you want.
Well, you're still, I don't know. You're at risk of a liability. I think that's the whole point of all this.
That's where that's the part I'm struggling with the most.
I mean, if you read through, I know there's lawyers can speak in vague terms, but I mean, I read it and despite some of that, I thought it was pretty clear, his opinion.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with you, but his opinion also, he's not gonna tell you, yeah, go ahead and do it.
I understand.
It's not what he gets paid for. He's not gonna do that.
But at the same time, if, if there was no executive order and we weren't in the situation we're in, maybe he would feel differently. I don't know.
I guess, and someone asked the question in public comment, and I guess I'm interested in the answer as well, is are we required in any one of these mandates or laws, or where is it written that the local districts have to police this? Because again, I don't see that either, right? So if a student comes without a mask, this to me says that they could get $100 fine, right, is really what this says. But where is it written, where's the rules that say that our local administration has to police this and send kids home if they don't wear masks?
And that's a great question. I was going to get to that. So there was a question tonight. Well, what happens if my child goes to school and does not wear a mask? And that's something that we could add to this plan. Obviously, the board tonight will vote on this plan. They could change some terminology if they would like to. But to answer that squarely, and Tim, that's a great question. It was a great question tonight. So students who come, if masks are required and it's approved tonight, and students come to school, they'll be removed from class. They'll be in the main office or the nurse's office until the parent picks them up, and they'll be counted as absent for the day.
That's some discrimination.
And I guess before we. Where does that policy or protocol come from? The state's telling us that?
No, they give flexibility as far as what will happen. And once again, the New Hartford Board of Ed could disagree with that procedure, protocol.
Okay, so what would be the alternative?
You're going to have unmasked kids in school.
Which goes back to leading. Do we have to decide on this tonight?
I think the public and our community needs clarity tonight.
Yeah, but we don't have clarity.
Uh,
How can we vote on this
I
if we don't
think,
have
I
clarity?
think I think there's enough clarity in this plan and the guidelines from the state and requirements from the state.
So I'm just gonna put what's in my head out there for a second. If we go with this and say that there's masks and kids show up without masks on and they're sent home, or they stage walkouts, at what point do we then have to look at truancy? At what point do we have to look at like a cap? Because this then affects their education, like, I mean, Tom brought it up about they then now can, it's really unfortunate.
That's why we.
They now can, come after us for not educating their kids because we're following this. So, I mean, it's just like, how do you draw the line? What do you look at for, do you know what I mean? And I'm just looking at if we put the mask thing down, like if we vote that there'll be masks for the first 30 days, like what does that look like legally? Right? Like, because if we're sending them home, are they then now truant because they're not getting their school time in?
Well, if enough days add up, they could be considered truant, yes.
Correct. Now take that one step further. What then happens with like their education? Is it, I mean, are we looking at lawsuits at the school because of this? Or are we not looking at lawsuits because it was the parent's choice to send them in?
Any person could file a lawsuit.
Oh, I understand. Yeah.
So,
I'm just trying to
Can't
look
predict
at,
what's
I'm
going
just
to
trying to
happen.
drill it down.
Yeah,
Like,
to
on
drill it
both
down, we
sides
have
of
to
it.
have conferences, the principals with parents. Hopefully this does not occur day after day because it's negatively impacting a student's education.
I make a motion that we,
Well,
There's already a motion
we
on
already
the
have a
table.
motion. Do we,
well, what's the motion?
the motion is to remove the mask mandate from the reopening plan.
Our mission,
Then, do we vote on it?
We're still in discussion, but
our goal, our mission, goals, objectives, non-discrimination. This district shall promote non-discrimination and an environment free of harassment based on an individual's race, color, religion, sex, sexual orientation, national origin, disability, marital status, or age, or because of the race, color, religion, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity, or expression, national origin, disability, marital status, or age, or any other persons with whom the individual associates. To me, if we're going to send people home and take their education from them, that's a clear case of discrimination.
Well, that's why we have to follow the mandate and the reopening plan. Otherwise, we're open for liability. You're talking about people coming in with mask, without mask, confusion. One rule, that's it. Hopefully in 30 days, he's rescinded.
We said that in June, and everyone
That's
said,
what it is. What are you gonna
why is
do?
it, Tom, not everything's a crusade. That's exactly what I was told back in June. Tom, not everything's a crusade. Well, here we are, almost September, and we're still in the same crusade. Nothing's gonna change. It comes the 30th, I'll bet you a substantial amount of money that we will be watching a goalpost move down through autumn.
Well, if the cases continue to rise as they're doing, you're probably right.
I guess my point here is, you don't think every other town and district in Connecticut is feeling the same way? Like, we're all going through this together. And there's a reason that there's no other board that's going against the guidelines. Like, and believe me, I can be a rebel. I kind of want to say, no, let's not do it. But there's also this part of me that, I'm trying to look at both sides of this, because I know that as many of us, that there's just as many of us who are pro-mask as there are against. So I'm also trying to, keep that under consideration. I know what you're all thinking. it should be a choice. And if those parents want to send their kids with a mask, they can. I know, I get that. I'm also trying to be, think about the teachers. We're hearing that it's 85% who are for masks. There's a reason for that,
Brian, what are the options, other than homeschooling itself, for kids that might not come to school? Are there, is there take-home schoolwork? Would that count? Are there, I know we're not doing virtual.
As far as not wearing a mask at school, you're asking
And you're-
specifically, no, there's not
Right,
any
right.
other options at this time.
I mean, that part does bother me, personally. But I know the virtual learning was difficult, and juggling both was not ideal.
Would it be that hard for us to offer virtual learning?
Yes, it's very difficult, and we feel that kids in person will be best served, yes.
I realize that, but
Yeah.
I understand those parents that don't want to send their kids to school with masks. And I don't want 75% of the children staying home because they don't want to wear masks and do virtual learning, but maybe that should be an option to offer it to them again, at least for the first month. And pray that on October 1st, he realizes what he's done and he says, no more masks. I mean, I don't think these little kids should be vaccinated. But I don't want them to get sick. And just as an FYI, some of those schools in Florida that did say that they're not going to make their children wear masks, they did lose funding from the state.
Brian, was there
Not
something
in
from
Florida.
the teachers union?
Not in Florida.
No, but you were citing before Georgia and this guy in North Carolina, some pediatrician, and the other man that wherever he was,
No, I know. I'm saying
that was out west on that YouTube. This is Connecticut. We have to follow those laws. But I'm just saying for information, this is what happens in other places that don't follow the rules. There's always consequences, unfortunately.
Brian, do you think, I know it's difficult with the virtual learning in every classroom, but depending on the need, would it be possible to designate one class in each grade that would have a virtual option?
No, that'd be impossible to do. That.
Why?
Well, how many kids we're going to have, who's going to participate in virtual learning? You can have a few kids, then it's going to disrupt the rest of the class enrollment and the rest of the grade levels. So, and a point was made, I remember.
virtual learning is just as bad as coming to school wearing a mask.
And a point was made last summer, as a matter of fact. It was a great point by a member of this board member. It was asked specifically to me. When we have distance learning, synchronous learning, distance learning for students who are not in the classroom, does that impact in-person learning? And the answer is yes, it does. Yes, it does. Now, I want to be we still have the whole plan to go to. Carl talked about that. There will be options, right, for distance learning on very unique situations, which the school district will determine. Hopefully, this never happens again this year. If a whole class has to be quarantined for some reason, we would take a look at that. But obviously, that's far different than a student who doesn't wear a mask coming to school. They're totally different situations there. I just want to be clear as far as distance learning offerings. But Carl, that'd be too precarious as far as your option there.
Brian, was there something with the teachers union that had something to do with the
Yeah,
cameras?
so that was a question tonight. What was the genesis of the survey?
No,
and
no,
who
no, I'm
was
talking
behind
about the
it?
classroom, the cameras in the classroom. There was something about it, like they didn't want it or couldn't do it or.
Well, they felt it was extremely difficult to
Okay.
balance the virtual learners, the distance learners, and the kids sitting in front of them.
I just thought I heard something
It's
about
almost impossible when
the
when you're
teachers
dealing with
union
younger kids
doing
too.
it with the cameras or
And just
something.
very
It's
quickly,
hard.
a question was asked about where the survey came
Right,
from,
yes.
85% of the teachers want students and staff to be masked. Yes, there was guidance from the CEA, the Teachers Union, the Connecticut Education Association. Yes, there was guidance as far as developing that survey.
Well, I think the question was, is it 85% of the teachers in our district as
Yes.
opposed to the whole state?
Yes, our
It's
district.
our district.
You know what I actually wish we did? I would like to know where parents stand at this point on masks with the
They're
new
here.
Delta variant.
There were no people here saying keep them.
Yeah, but there's-
Okay,
disrespectful,
well,
okay?
I would have thought, I
receiving
would have thought that
texts
this
about
would
it.
have
I'm sure
been,
there are some, but if they felt strongly, they could have come out. These people felt strong enough to come out.
Not
And we lost
necessarily.
half of them because of,
All right, any further discussion? All right.
So what is
was the
the,
motion
We
again?
have a motion, Tom Buzzy, Tim Kleps, second, to remove the universal and correct wearing of masks from the reopening plan.
it's to change it to be mask will be optional for the 20.
Oh, was that your, I'm sorry, was that your motion?
Wearing of masks will be optional for the 21-22 school year.
Any further discussion?
So your motion is that we make masks optional?
Optional, sorry, I misinterpreted. your
Okay.
motion.
Thank you.
Everyone understand the motion?
Yeah.
Okay. All in favor? Opposed? Abstain? Motion fails. I counted those right?
Yes.
Yes.
Why are we abstaining?
because I don't.
I
I'm
would
not
like to
ready
remind
make-
everybody that this is not open discussion. This is not out for the comments. It's difficult enough as it is to be in this position. Okay? So, I mean, I appreciate it. It has definitely weighed on us. But we're not supposed to be interacting with you guys, and you're not supposed to be interacting with us. We listened to you guys graciously as well. And I know I'm stepping out of turn saying that, but I'm saying it.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'd
Thank
like
you.
to make a motion to table the reopening plan until more information is provided.
I second that, or at least 24 hours to
We have to have a special meeting, we've got to have a special meeting.
I'm for that.
100%.
We would, discussion on that?
But again, the information I'm requesting is again, updated executive orders, information from the Commissioner of Public Health on administration of these orders. I'd like
That's why
true
I
information on
abstained.
repercussions of us not following the orders. Is $100. Are we considered the employer who is liable for the fines? Right, as it's stated in this current executive order? Repercussions from our again, our attorney's opinion. Not that we could be sued, because we could be sued by making a student wear a mask because they get sick. More information is needed, I think, to make the appropriate decision for the town.
And that's why I abstained, because I agree with that. I need more information at this point.
I just want to be clear, just reiterate, there is not going to be any clear or additional information from this document. I just want to be clear about, there's not any other additional information out there that's going to clarify what needs to be in these boxes. Obviously, the board could decide to add any terminology they would like to, but I just don't want to give people the impression there's going to be additional information to this document. Because once again, these are going off the requirements / guidelines, which they're both depending on the mitigation factors from the Connecticut State Department of Education.
But could you ask our attorney, is there any way that we can get around without jeopardizing anything we get from the state if we go against what he's saying we have to do?
I think, Penny, the attorney was very clear. Carl, if you want to add anything to that, but it was very clear, he's not going to opine anymore as far as
Okay.
repercussions. on
All right.
it. Yeah.
The attorney, of course, erred on the side of caution. He's going to tell you you could be sued, right? I don't remember reading it, but to that point, you could be sued by someone who starts getting a rash around their mouth, okay, or has asthmatic attack, okay. you could easily say, well, it's because of the mask. You could get sued for either side of this argument. What we don't have is what the state can do to us, regardless of what the public feels, what the state could do to us as a community. Is Lamont going to say, I'm sure he's going to be, I just have my opinion about the man, but I'm sure he's going to say, okay, well, let's see, I can save $1 million, but cutting their funding off.
Tom, except if someone has a rash and they try to sue him, the attorneys in the state of Connecticut Board of Education has this mandate as their backing for their argument.
I'm not
That's
disagreeing
the
with you.
biggest point. I mean,
fact
that's
that
the point.
The fact that we're following.
We
the
don't really have
guidelines
too much choice.
is-
I mean, I don't want the kids to wear masks either, believe me. I really don't. But I don't want to see one get sick either. All it takes is one.
I just feel like a few more other, regardless of what was put out by the lawyer, I feel like we're kind of all, like, we're asking a lot of little questions here and trying to figure this out. Some hypothetical questions were brought up. Heather, you made a couple of points, and I just don't feel like we're clear.
I think we're all looking for a safety blanket so we can vote. Make my motion go through, but we don't have it and we're not going to get it. So unless we say we'll be the first, then we may as well vote on this plan tonight. But I would say we don't approve this plan regardless of what this board decides. I don't want to put a stamp of approval on this. But I don't think we're going to get any more clarity from anyone else other than that, Tim, you have some more of what you're looking for.
No, I mean, again, it's got to be made clear. That's what's very confusing about this is, again, we're going on a statement that was made today about a expired executive order. We're creating a plan that was provided us by the state that, I mean, again, I quote, please review and consider the CDC guidance and Connecticut DPH and Connecticut State Department of Education guidance for each category. The review and consider it, right? This executive order, if I read it word by word, tells me you have to wear a mask if you can't maintain 6 feet. This says social distance will be decreased to 3 feet. I can't tie it together. And that's why I struggle with making a decision and voting for this plan until we have information that ties.
What executive order requires children to wear masks? Is it not 12A or whatever we're on
I'd have to
now?
tell
It's-
the exact, what the executive order's termed. I'd have to
Well, no,
look, because we
what-
know one expired July 20th, but it was extended till
That was-
September 30th. So is that still called executive order number 12A?
Executive Order
Oh, no.
13A is the
13A.
most recent
13A?
here.
13A.
Okay.
I'm sending.
So 13A.
And that-
Yep.
that's through
So
September.
13A there's no ambiguity in 13A that says unless you can maintain 6 feet of difference, you need to wear a mask. It says you need to wear a mask. That was, I'm asking the question.
Yes,
Are we sure of that?
yes, absolutely.
Yeah, 13A.
I just sent it to you guys.
I'll read it.
I'm forwarding it to you right now.
As I mentioned earlier, we could strike 12A because we need to and update it to 13A. The rest of the information is not, it's not going to change.
That's just words out there.
A person while indoors in a public space who does not maintain a safe social distance approximately 6 feet from every other person and who is not fully vaccinated shall cover their mouth and nose with a mask or face covering. The Commissioner of Public Health shall issue a rule setting forth a comprehensive list of facilities, venues, and other locations where masks and cloth face coverings are required, including for people who are vaccinated, and will amend said rule as the Commissioner determines is warranted by public health.
And then it says anybody who fails to wear a mask could be fined $100.
That should be guilty of violation and fined $100.
So then, like you asked before, Is it us paying the $100 to somebody? Or is it the parent because they refuse to mask their child? Are they paying the $100?
But who's turning around handing out $100 tickets? Is Brian gonna
Yeah,
be
they have
walking
a
around?
list.
I don't know.
the school
They have a
handing-
list of
that's-
No,
people.
we would not be,
No,
That's
general
not proposed to
statute
do.
is amended, authorizing Commissioner of Public Health, local health directors, district health directors, state and municipal police officers. Right, they're the ones fining.
And it goes into a general fund, it says.
What are you finding?
In that section, number 2, at the bottom of that paragraph before it goes into the next page, it says all fines collected pursuant to this order shall be distributed to the general fund. You see it?
Mhm.
Do you think it would help if we have a special meeting and ask the attorney to come and give us his guidance, or is it just going to be more of the same?
I'm gonna tell you the same thing you put in writing.
It cost us money.
I mean, this executive order was after the lawyer wrote his opinion, but I
Right.
don't see it changing too much.
Oh, and he signed this on August 5th. I thought he did it today.
No, it's August 5th.
Oh.
Did the State Department of Education change any of their guidance after this executive order, or was it before? After this 13A executive order,
And what was 13A?
August 5th?
These are the guidelines that are incorporated as part of that, yes.
Okay. I mean, I hear what you're saying, Tim. I get it. I don't know if we're gonna get any further because this is so fluid, and I don't think we're gonna get much more guidance.
It also says in this article from NBC Connecticut, on Tuesday, the state's COVID-19 positivity rate was 4.2%. I don't know what it is. Oh, this is Tuesday. That's what happens when I stay home.
All right, any further discussion?
Can we just move this whole reopening plan and have a special meeting between now and September, whatever?
August 30th is the
Well,
first
I
day
mean,
of school.
we're
isn't it?
2 weeks, less than 2 weeks
August
away.
30th is the first day of school, yes.
If this gets pushed off at all, it needs to be done within like 24, 48 hours. It needs to
And the
be kind of
question
done,
is,
like,
what
pronto.
is going to change from
We're not
now
gonna
until the next meeting?
Right.
Nothing will change.
Nothing will change.
When you surveyed the parents, was one of the questions about asking if their child would wear a mask to school?
The question was, what was the mitigating factor that you were most concerned with? And cohorting was number 1 and masks were number 2. But they were both the biggest concerns of parents as far as the mitigation efforts last year.
But one of the questions wasn't, would you send your child to school with a mask?
No, that was not specific.
And I suppose we can't do a survey between now and August 30th to find out.
No one would answer it. Less than half people
I think
responded to
nobody-
that survey.
I know. Well,
No
you know,
one
you
wants
would
to send
hope.
their
It's too bad the newspaper reporter's not here.
I mean, if we have to make a decision, can we do, who brought up, maybe approving this for the first 30 days and then we reconvene and discuss it again?
It's a good idea.
Well, to that point, if we get, if there's a new executive order that does away with all the requirements, do we have to meet to change this, or can we just, does the subcommittee need to meet, or what needs to happen?
I think that'd be beneficial if we meet again. If there are any changes, yes, to approve a new plan, yes,
So we'd have to do an emergency meeting.
yes.
But when would it change? Between now and the 30th?
I would say after the 30th, if there's a change to the masks.
It would be after the,
So it would be before September 30th.
right,
And we have a meeting in September.
we do,
We could discuss it then.
we do.
And then try and get Tim Clip's questions answered and concerns.
And we'll have a full board.
Exactly.
How does everybody feel about that?
Tim, what was your motion?
To table the reopening plan to a future meeting with more feedback.
Can we vote
Did
on
I
that
say that
motion?
right, Tim?
Yeah, and what do we do meanwhile?
Yeah, but
when
we have
school
to vote,
starts?
we have to do something.
We have to give these parents some kind of direction.
I agree. I feel at the very least, we need to open the schools and
Yeah.
with what we decide tonight, and if we need to regroup,
I think we follow what they are asking us to do for at least 1 month, not to exceed a month.
But isn't that what he said?
Governor,
Yeah, isn't that what he said for 30 days?
he said a month or more
that's for now.
was in his comments.
Yeah, you're right.
But as a board, can we approve this reopening plan for a month?
Yes.
We could,
Then there you go.
And then we'll have the same discussion in September.
Need a vote on Tim's.
And I really would like a parent survey, and I would like it to be specific. The question to be specific about masks.
Masks
Just
or
to-
no masks?
What is that gonna solve, though, Kel?
No, I just, I want to hear,
This many people.
because we only have a
wanting this
handful of
many-
people out here. I
Yeah.
don't really know what everybody's thinking right now.
These are all the parents who don't want masks. There might be parents out there who do want masks.
Well, I'm sure they don't want masks, but they want them because of the situation. But, you know what I mean? That's the whole,
But still, why not ask?
okay. I guess we could.
my biggest concern is just making sure every kid has access to education,
Right.
depending on whatever choice it is, and like, that could work on both sides, so I don't know how to solve that.
It is our duty to educate our children.
We can't kick them out for not wearing a mask either.
I realize that.
Just
Nor
speaking-
can we segregate them
Correct.
or send them home.
But then, to your point, if we make things optional, then some other people are gonna be, some other people will be affected and not want their kids in school. Yep, so we have a motion. Any other discussion before we vote?
What's the
What's the
motion? this one?
motion, Tim?
Tim's motion is to table
Oh.
the reopening plan to a future meeting so that we can gather more information. Now, we could certainly still meet before our next meeting if we deem necessary, but I don't have the date of our next meeting, but it's
I want to say it's the 13th.
17th.
17th?
So we have to vote on that before we can make a new motion to maybe,
we do. We have
Approved
to
it.
vote on whether to delay it or not.
No, our next meeting is September 14th.
14th, I'm sorry. That's next month. Did someone second Tim's motion?
I did.
Yes, Heather
I-
did.
I
Oh, you
did,
did.
yeah.
All right, so motion from Tim to delay the reopening plan until a future date.
I
Any
think
other
the date,
discussion?
can we set a date now? Because I don't want it to,
Well,
would it be the next Board of Ed meeting or would it be,
we can't do that.
right?
Why?
Because you
School's
have to
gotta
have something before
start.
school starts.
Yeah, so I mean, like, can we? put
That's
it-
why I
We
think
can't
Right.
table.
We would
we
have
should
to-
do the 30 days.
we would have to meet in the next week or so.
Right, which I agree with that.
Are we ready to vote, or do we not want to talk about it more?
I think we have to vote, we have to move on.
Okay. All in favor of Tim's motion to delay the reopening plan to a future meeting to be determined?
It's in the next 2 weeks.
It would have to be within the next 2 weeks, Tim.
Mhm.
Yeah.
All in favor?
How are you gonna say this?
Tim, did you vote?
Yes.
Okay.
Tony?
All opposed? Motion passes.
Can she see who's voting?
I should say abstain. Are there any abstentions?
I'm sorry, what?
I didn't ask for abstentions.
Oh,
I'm sorry. I don't think anyone abstained. Okay. All right, motion passes. We'll have to pick another
We tried.
date to meet. I think the sooner the better. But I think we also have to talk about what kind of clarity we want.
Are we further discussing things within this?
I think that would be
Like-
fruitless to do that. Let's just wait until the next meeting.
So let's talk about the next meeting and before we adjourn, the next meeting and what exactly we want to clarify. And I don't know if it, Brian, do you want to collect that outside of this meeting, or do we want to talk about it now? Because if it doesn't involve the lawyer. does
Probably
it-
need to set a date. I mean, it's within the next 2 weeks, so.
Who's available within the next 2 weeks?
I'll make it happen even if it's at midnight. I don't care. I need just,
I'm not meeting at midnight.
Well, you don't care what your
But
meeting on.
before we do that,
We need
I
to
don't
know-
care.
do
I
we
want-
need the lawyer here?
We need to know.
That's what I'm saying.
what
I think we need to discuss, do we,
We already know.
we can't
the
pick a
answer
time
to
if we don't know.
Yeah.
What'd you say, Tom? I talked over you. I'm
it.
sorry.
Sorry, I talked over you.
Oh.
I was gonna say, we already know the lawyer's opinion on liability. That's clear, and we already knew that. We didn't need to waste his time on what his answer was gonna be. But we do need to know what the state can do to us if we went down a different path. That's what we don't know.
And who tells us that?
That's-
Does the
Well,
lawyer
we
tell
have-
us that?
To Tim's point, is it a $100 fine per occurrence?
I was under the impression that what comes of this is if somebody gets, like, how it's going to affect us is if something happens to a staff member or a student and they turn around and sue the district, that's how we are held liable. I don't think that anybody's gonna come in and slap us on the wrist or
But
Fine
and
us.
that's the thing, but the complete opposite can happen, right? Someone can come in here and do the same because they wore a mask,
Right.
right? Yes, but we're being told by the state that they have to wear a mask. So
True.
again, we're protected by that.
you're making a good point.
I don't know. We're protected by that, but if we say, again, it's optional, people, again, come in, you have the option. Right? Wear a mask if you want, don't wear a mask if you don't want. I think the word mandate takes that option away, personally, but.
I agree, but so who, we have our lawyer, we have CABE, we have the State Department of Education. I don't know if we.
I wouldn't like them. We're gonna waste of time.
So what was the things that we wanted clarification on? The state repercussions for masks optional. We wanted to know if there were new and updated orders and guidelines, correct, Tim?
Yeah, I mean, we need something current, right? I mean, this just came out in a publication today, right? Are they just renewing? The Department of Health, right? Do we have something from the Department of Health? Again, who's responsible for administering it? Who's
What
responsible for, like, this board sets, like, we set the protocols, right, for this town, right? So are we who's telling Brian and the administration here how to handle a student who comes without a mask on?
So what I will do is I will share with the board the guidelines, requirements that this plan is based on, but directly from the Connecticut State Department of Education. How does that sound? I'll send it to the board.
That would be useful.
And then we mentioned earlier, or you mentioned, Brian, that to answer people, some audience questions, what happens when a child comes to school on a mask? And there, according to what your response was, there is no policy, correct, for what happens? You would have said this could happen?
No, there's nothing in our policy that states that, as there's nothing in our policy, a lot of these
No, is there
guidelines
in it?
requirements. However, that is the recommended response, school response, but the Board of Ed could obviously disagree with that and come up with an alternative plan, but that's the recommendation as far as students do not come to school with masks on. Obviously, there was some disagreement with that, but once again, the board has an alternative to that. Of course, we could discuss that.
Well, what is the best way to promulgate that procedure, and codify that?
But now we're just talking with options, right?
Well, if I came up on my own and made a motion that this is how we're gonna handle people who don't show up with a mask, and I wrote it all out and read it to the board, I make a motion, this, and this. Someone seconds it, and it gets approved, is that how it's gonna work?
Yes, yes.
But you're saying as of right now, there's nothing like that in place?
No, there's nothing in place. As
Then
far
how
as
can-
what the consequences are, what's the follow-through on that, there's nothing in place as far as that's concerned.
Is there someone you could talk,
But that-
is there
that's-
some way
that's
you can
actually a
talk to
question I have.
someone about it?
How does that happen?
Each district is coming up with their own as far as response to that.
I know we don't want to do this, but say in the classroom, what do we have? We have 20 children in a classroom, 18 of our masks are masked and 2 are not. And I know I really don't want them being sent home and not, because they usually don't get homework to take home with them. How would it be if a section of the classroom is for those students? And I hate to segregate them because it's not the right thing to do, but they're still in the classroom. They're still learning with their peers. Do you know what I mean?
What are you saying?
If you had 7/8 of the classroom and they're all masked children, and you have 2 little kids over here that are unmasked, they're still in the classroom, they're still learning. They're not being sent home, they're not being marked truant at some point, but they are being segregated in their room, but only because they don't have a mask on.
Have you ever been in a kindergarten classroom?
I've been in a kindergarten
Okay,
classroom,
it's
yes.
just about impossible.
I realize that. Guess I was thinking of Antolini. But, so if these children are not penalized for not wearing a mask into school, there has to be something that we could do as a board so that they're still learning with their peers in the same classroom.
It's impossible. If we vote on this reopening plan
Well,
and we
it
go
was just
along
a
with the
thought.
state guidelines,
There are no guidelines for how you handle someone who says, I'm not following that procedure. And that's
a problem. That is a problem.
It's not a problem.
I mean, there has to be some way that they can still be part of the group, even though they're not wearing a mask. And if I had a small child, I would be that parent that would say, my kid is not wearing a mask. I don't really care what you say.
Exactly.
But then that's me.
Well, I mean, again, I being in different schools, I've seen again, even these these companies are selling them now, these 3-sided plexiglass items, right? Is that an option for the district? Does that allow you to say you're 6 feet apart, right? Where you sit down to your desk and take that mask off, right? Are those options to say you're 6 feet again? But more so than that, again, is even with this plan, Brian, the other thing is to understand this, we're decreasing to 3 feet. Where did, and I know the reopening subcommittee went through a lot of effort to get to where we are, right? But where did, is that something that we can do? Can we reduce to 3 feet? Is that written somewhere?
So yes, absolutely. Once again, I will share that information. That'll be on the updated plan with 3 feet to the entire board. Which, once again, that information from the guidelines requirements are placed into this plan. But yes, we can do that, Tim, to answer your question.
Right, which is strange, because again, 13A says 6 feet, right? Where do we get 3 feet from, right? It's strange, and I actually am looking at a letter, right, that's written by Department of Public Health, right? This is based on 12A, which does say inside public and private schools, right? But again, is there opportunities around that we can get our primary students out of masks for the majority of time they're in the school?
And just to answer that directly, Tim, the answer is no. The answer is no. However, as we talked, we didn't get a chance to read the whole plan. There are situations in schools, for instance, it was brought tonight, that's allowed by the State Department of Education if you eat lunch, right? You don't have to wear masks eating lunch. So then it gets into, and these are great points, right? How inconsistent is that, right? How could students in some part of the day eating lunch not wear masks, and the majority of the day they have to wear masks? That's just the guidelines based and the requirements based on what they're telling districts and the flexibilities as far as that's concerned in schools. And it gets to the other layer of how did the health experts, how did the Connecticut State Department of Education arrive at that? I'm not a doctor. I can't answer how they arrived at that. I'm just letting you know what the requirements are and the guidelines and where the flexibility is, what we have with that.
All right, so what I'm hearing is we're going to look to the State Department of Education for,
Yep, I'll share the guidance, which encompasses everything we have in this document.
Who's going to schedule the special meeting?
do we think we need any other advice or from other areas?
Like, where do we, where's the state's financial leverage on this Board of Education? I already know that.
Well,
Right.
we are,
Am I oversimplifying that?
we are part of the state Board of Ed. I mean,
Well, is it possible also, Brian, I mean, to talk to the attorneys, and if we give choice and have a waiver signed, is that acceptable, or,
We could ask.
I mean, it's.
I doubt that's going to be an option. Once again, I think it's very clear in that opinion letter, but of course, we
I
could,
agree,
we could
but
ask
is
again.
it something-
We
I
could
mean, it
ask
seems
again,
to be
sure.
What people want, so if we
We could
can
ask
do
again.
that, let's do that.
We could ask again, yes.
So why don't we do that? I just want to make sure we have everything we want for our next meeting. So
I agree, and I think we need to be 100% ready with the repercussions. If we vote for no mask or mask optional, this is going to go nationwide because we'll be the first ones. So I think we need to make sure that we know what we know and we're supporting what we're supporting.
Worth asking.
I mean, like, is your ECS at stake? How can that be tied to this? That's a question I would like to know, right?
Sure.
Is
Unless
what
you
at
know that.
stake?
ECS funding.
VCS.
ECS.
Oh,
ECS.
ECS funding.
So just sifting through that opinion letter. And Tom's brought that up as a great point as far as what are the financial repercussions if we don't follow the mask mandate, correct?
Right.
I think the point is no district has ever tried to do this, so no one really has the answer to what the state will do. So I think that might be unclear as far as that's concerned, because no one tried it. But as always, it's always probably important to ask for clarification, sure, as far as what are the financial repercussions.
Could we ask CAPE to go back to the State Board of Education and the Department of Health and get guidelines on all of this?
That would not be fruitful because the guidelines and requirements are,
Right.
I think, pretty clear.
Okay.
So today was really, when the information came out, and our meeting happened to fall on this day. And there's other boards across the state who have met prior, and there's others who are still meeting
Right.
subsequently. So we may see other boards having the same conversation coming up. So you don't know.
Right, we can't predict that, what boards across the state are going to do. Yes, they'll definitely be discussing it in board meetings, yes.
If every board said, we're doing an optional, you'd have no choice but say, I gotta hammer it on every board in the state, but that's not gonna happen. But you know where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
Do you think CAPE could guide us on if there's been, we don't know what's happened in every board meeting, if there's been a discussion similar to ours where things were looked into, similar to what we're looking for? I don't know how much gathering and information they have from every board meeting, but do you think that's an avenue, Brian?
I think, Carl, that every Board of Education in Connecticut's wrangling with this, so I don't know if there'll be any additional information to get about that. But I want to, our stakeholders, our parents and staff think that a plan's going to be out tomorrow. I'd like the board to give me the opportunity to email parents and staff tomorrow, a very pithy email as far as the reopening plan was tabled at the board meeting tonight, and will be rescheduled to review the plan again. And we'll get it, the plan will be out before the school year starts. Is that safe to say? That's a good idea to say that, to clarify
I'm
that?
sorry that we
So
put you
that-
in this
Thank you.
situation.
It just leaves us next week.
Are you sending out a survey?
I don't know if a survey's,
Necessary, okay. I did, well, Kelly had, I was curious about it, and
I just threw it out
I
there.
just was bringing it, I was circling back to see.
yeah.
Tim comes back on the 23rd. Can we do it in one of those next couple of days after that, the 24th, 25th, 26th?
We have to.
What's the, I have to get my calendar.
I'm gonna have to change some.
Do I need a motion, Brian, for this regarding your email tomorrow to the parents?
I don't think so, no.
I just want to say, I would like to clarify in that email to them about why it was tabled, as there's so much discussion over the first item on the plan. You know, is,
You know, and they're presented with information the day of our board meeting.
I think that, I think it would capture in the email that the New Hartford Board of Education, excuse me, is going to continue to review the plan again. I don't think we have to get into any specifics.
I don't think there's any reason to
Words out.
to get people all
That's true.
worked up about it.
Just keep it simple.
They'll know.
So what do we do
But-
next Tuesday?
Yeah, next Tuesday, I think that's ample time. Brian, do you think, to get some more information and that's close, cutting it close to the first day of school, but
Yeah, it's 24th.
the 24th?
Mhm.
Is everyone good with that?
No, but I'll
Fine
figure
with me.
something out. Yeah, that's fine.
7 o'clock?
Sure. Unless you want to do it at 6.
I can't do it at 6. I have to do it at 7.
Okay.
Everyone okay with that? We're still looking.
I'll make it okay.
All right, August 24th at 7,
A special meeting?
special meeting.
Right, so you'll have to get the agenda out.
This will be our only topic.
Is a special meeting not a closed meeting, correct? It's exactly the same as this.
There'll be no public comment. It's just a
Just a
special
meeting.
It's just, okay, I just,
They can listen, but they
So
can't
there's
speak.
one agenda item.
correct.
Motion to adjourn
A second.
at 9:10.
Sure.
All in favor? Thank you, everybody.